I crossed over, and, after 18 years, became the only immortal in the human world. But my junior sister wanted to break off our engagement and marry my scheming green tea junior brother instead. Afraid I wouldn't agree, my junior brother hurriedly jumped out and accused me. He slandered me as the real culprit who raped and murdered our senior sister. Back then, everyone in the sect stood on that scheming green tea junior brother's side. As a group, they begged the sect master to dig out my spirit root, cripple my cultivation, and then slice me to death. A cold smile curled at my lips. If that's how it is, then let the entire sect be destroyed. I transmigrated into this cultivation world and successfully awakened the slacker system. As long as I slacked off, I could grow stronger every day. I was either sleeping or basking in the sun on Piao Miao Peak, rarely going out. Who would have thought that 18 years later, I'd become the only immortal in the human realm? At this moment, I was sunbathing, but my junior sister, Chu Yunyao, brought several thousand disciples and surrounded me. She looked at me with disdain. Senior brother, 18 years ago, you established your foundation at the age of 5. You were recognized as the #1 genius in the sect, but you never tried to improve yourself. You loved eating and being lazy, and 18 years later, you're still only at the foundation establishment stage. You've become the sect's #1 trash. Do you think you're still worthy of me? Junior sister was Master's daughter, and she had been born 18 years ago. The original owner had possessed a heavenly Tao spirit root, establishing his foundation at 5. He was a once-in-a-thousand-years, peerless genius, but because he was too young and too eager for quick success, he suffered chi deviation, and his soul scattered. That was when I just happened to transmigrate over. To bind me deeply to the sect, Master had arranged this engagement. The reason junior sister believed I was only a foundation establishment cultivator was merely because the system had concealed my aura. Seeing that I said nothing, she frowned. Today, I brought all the sect's disciples here to witness this. I'm breaking off my engagement with useless trash like you. Do you have any objections? I spoke calmly. Does Master know about this? The engagement had been arranged by Master, even though after I started lying flat all these years, Master no longer liked me much. The original owner had been raised by Master himself, so he still owed him a debt of gratitude. If Master personally came forward to cancel the engagement, then, for the original owner's sake, I wouldn't necessarily refuse. Junior sister's maid snapped angrily. So, what if the sect master doesn't know? My young lady personally coming to break off the engagement with you is already giving you plenty of face. Don't fail to appreciate kindness. Chu Yunyao sneered. I knew you wouldn't be willing. The sect doesn't raise trash. If you break off the engagement with me, sooner or later, you'll be kicked out of the sect. But don't keep fantasizing. The gap between us now is like heaven and earth. I'm sure you've heard that I already broke through to the nascent soul stage at 18, and both junior brother and I passed the Sword Immortal Pavilion's assessment and became reserve candidates for the 3,000 Sword Immortals. Oh, the Sword Immortal Pavilion. Wasn't that founded by Yuan Gang, the disciple I taught in my dreams? I let out a soft laugh. Isn't it just being a reserve candidate? Shut up, you useless trash. Do you even understand how terrifying the 3,000 Sword Immortals are? The Sword Immortal Pavilion was founded by Lord Yuan Gang, the only terrestrial sword immortal in the human world, and only peerless prodigies can join the 3,000 Sword Immortals. Every single person who can join the 3,000 Sword Immortals is enough to leave their name in history. The other senior and junior brothers all chimed in. Exactly. The Sword Immortal Pavilion may not be a sect, but it stands above all sects. When the demon race invaded in force back then, the sect alliance was beaten into a constant retreat, just when the human world was about to fall and become a hellscape. It was the 3,000 Sword Immortals who formed the Immortal Slaying Sword Formation and turned the tide, and Lord Terrestrial Sword Immortal cut down the Demon King with one man and one sword. Only then did the demon race completely vanish. If anyone in this world dares call himself #1, it can only be the Sword Immortals of the Sword Immortal Pavilion. For Junior Sister to gain a Sword Immortals recognition is such an honor. Exactly. Junior Sister becoming a reserve candidate of the 3,000 Sword Immortals isn't something trash like you could ever reach up to. Yeah, Junior Sister is heaven's favored daughter, while you're just trash. Even if junior sister dared to marry you, would you even dare to marry her? Talk about the moon reaching for the stars. Just then, my junior brother Xie An arrived in a rush with people from the enforcement hall. The various elders and the sect master also stepped through the air and arrived. Seeing such a huge scene, everyone looked at one another, not knowing what major event had happened. Junior brother Xie An walked over and, crying, said something that shocked the entire crowd. Senior brother, 3 years ago, not long after I came to the sect, I accidentally witnessed you raping and murdering senior sister. At the time, I was too weak and didn't dare speak up. For the past 3 years, I haven't eaten well or slept well. My conscience has tormented me every moment of every day. But today, I figured it out. I absolutely won't allow senior sister Chu to marry a despicable villain like you. The moment those words came out, the whole place exploded. Chu Yunyao hurried over and wiped Xie An's tears, then turned and glared at me viciously. Su, Watchin, I never thought you'd be such a vile scumbag. You're not worthy of being senior brother, and even less worthy of being my husband. Chu Yun Yao's husband. How could you face senior sister? Someone like you deserves to be cut into 1,000 pieces. As soon as Chu Yunyao finished speaking, the entire Piao Miao Peak Plaza instantly erupted. Beast! Senior sister treated us with enormous kindness. And you dared do something this filthy. No wonder senior sister suddenly disappeared back then. So you were the animal who harmed her. Senior sister was always the gentlest and kindest to us. And you beast! Kill him! Avenge senior sister! Dig out his spirit root! Cripple his cultivation! And slice him to death! Master Chu Shan's face was dark as he shouted in fury. Ungrateful disciple! You raped and murdered the sect's senior sister! And Xie An witnessed it with his own eyes. What do you have to say for yourself? Junior brother Xie An knelt down and cried even harder. Master, poor senior sister was heaven blessed. Yet she was violated by senior brother and had her life taken. You must uphold justice for senior sister. My expression stayed calm as I spoke lightly. Xie An, you say I raped and murdered senior sister. Do you have any evidence? Xie An froze, then pointed at me angrily and roared, you raped and murdered senior sister, and I accidentally witnessed it. I was afraid back then and didn't dare say it, but now I absolutely want to allow senior sister Chu Yunyao to jump into a fire pit. 2. I know my status is low, but I still want to seek justice for senior sister. Chu Yunyao held Xie An tightly in her arms and raised her eyes to glare at me with venom. Su, Watchin, Xie An is so kind. He would never lie. You beast! I looked at Chu Yunyao for a long while, and my heart couldn't help turning cold. For these 18 years, I had always been slacking off and had no need to cultivate. So, for all these years, I gave all the spirit stones and pills the sect issued me to junior sister. And whenever the sect had missions for me, I never once shirked them. It could be said that after 18 years in the sect, I owed the sect absolutely nothing. 3 years ago, when junior sister was on a mission, she was trapped in the death forbidden lands, immortal extinguishing formation for 7 days and 7 nights. She had been on her last breath. Every elder in the entire sect was mobilized. Yet, no one could save junior sister. Everyone thought she was certain to die. Master could only kneel outside the formation and cry. He could do nothing at all. It was I who forcibly broke the formation and saved her, though, afterward, in order to keep slacking off and avoid trouble. I only said I had broken the formation by accident, but if I hadn't acted that time, junior sister would have become a pile of bones long ago. And now Xie An just said a few empty words, and she already wanted me dead that badly. My heart suddenly clenched hard. Several thousand disciples in the whole place looked at me with bloodshot eyes, wishing they could tear me into pieces on the spot. I smiled calmly. So that means Therese, no evidence. Let me ask. Only at the foundation establishment stage, while senior sister had already reached the middle nascent soul stage 3 years ago. How exactly could I have killed senior sister? As soon as I said that, the whole crowd looked at one another. That's true. Senior brother is just trash. How could senior sister, with her cultivation, be so easily victimized? Could there really be some hidden truth here? Chu Yunyao hurriedly looked at Xie An. Junior brother quickly defended himself. Senior brother must have drugged her. Otherwise, with his strength, how could he have been senior sister's match? Chu Yunyao's face turned icy, and she looked at me with venom. So, Su Wuchen, you were that despicable. You'd even do something as shameless and filthy as drugging someone. I couldn't help laughing up at the sky. Haha, a bunch of idiots. Senior sister was a middle-stage, nascent soul expert. Ordinary drugs would have almost no effect on her. And the kind of drug that could make a nascent soul expert unable to resist Tao, could a mere foundation establishment cultivator like me possibly get something like that? At those words, Xie An's face turned deathly pale. The other disciples were stunned, too. Yet, Master flew into a rage. Su Wuchen, even now, you still refuse to admit it. Are you truly this stubborn? Chu Yunyao looked at Master and urgently said, Su Wuchen raped and murdered senior sister. His crime is unforgivable. Father, please dig out his spirit root and give it to junior brother. Su Wuchen is just trash and morally rotten. He doesn't deserve to possess a heavenly Tao spirit root at all. A spirit root of immortal quality like that should belong only to a kind person like junior brother. Chu Yunyao had a divine phoenix spirit root, which was equally rare. So, she didn't need to replace mine, but she actually wanted to give my spirit root to the junior brother she loved. At this moment, not just Mevrion present understood. This whole thing about me raping and murdering senior sister was most likely made up from thin air. What the truth was didn't matter. They just wanted an excuse outsiders couldn't criticize, so they could reasonably break off the engagement and dig out my spirit root. Now, it was just a matter of picking sides. I was only a weak foundation establishment cultivator, but behind junior brother and junior sister stood the sect master, representing the entire sect. And on top of that, junior brother and junior sister had both been selected as reserve candidates for the Sword Immortal Pavilions, 3,000 Sword Immortals. Everyone present figured it all out at once. They all cupped their fists toward the sect master and shouted in unison, Su Wuchen's crime is unforgivable. We ask Sect Master to dig out his spirit root, cripple his cultivation, and slice him to death. Junior brother looked at me with smugness in his eyes. Very good. I'd been slacking off for 18 years, and was indeed bored enough. Using you all for some entertainment wasn't bad either. Master Chu Shan waved a hand and shouted loudly, Where are the enforcement hall disciples? Seize this ungrateful disciple for me at once. More than a dozen enforcement hall disciples rushed out and lunged at me. I stood where I was, calm as an ancient well, and only extended a single finger, tapping into the void. The dozen or so enforcement hall disciples who had rushed at me all showed horror in their eyes. They were frozen in place, unable to move. I gently grabbed at the void with my right hand, and the dozen disciples instantly exploded. Bang, bang, bang. They turned into clouds of blood mist. The thick smell of blood spread through the air and quickly filled the area. The whole crowd was stunned. Some disciples with weaker strength were so frightened that their livers and gall nearly split, all of them pale-faced. Anyone who could enter the enforcement hall was a golden core cultivator, yet they were instantly killed in a single exchange. What kind of cultivation was this? Senior brother had a heavenly Tao spirit root and could almost be invincible within the same realm. Golden core peak. No. Nascent soul. Senior brother had to be at least a major nascent soul cultivator to do this. Even the sect master and the elders were stunned, sensing things were going badly. Junior brother retreated while shouting wildly. Senior brother denied killing senior sister just now, but he hid his cultivation with ulterior motives. He definitely raped and murdered senior sister. A mocking smile flashed across my lips. With a grab through the air, Xie An was instantly dragged into my hand by a huge suction force. It all happened in the blink of an eye. By the time the sect master wanted to stop me, it was already too late. Xie An's face was full of terror. He was a nascent soul expert, yet no matter how hard he struggled, he found he couldn't break free. You let me go. A reserve candidate of the Sword Immortal Pavilion's 3,000 Sword Immortals. If you dare touch me, you'll definitely die. Damn it. I hate this kind of scheming green tea the most. Smack, smack. I slapped him several times across the face, and crisp smacking sounds rang out. Both his cheeks immediately swelled high. I threw him to the ground like a dead dog and stomped a foot down on his crotch. Xie, and let out a shrill scream. It was horrifyingly miserable. Everyone was dumbfounded. No one had expected the useless, trash senior brother to be this savage. Su Wuchen, you're dead. Junior brother is a reserve candidate of the Sword Immortal Pavilions, 3,000 Sword Immortals. Treating him like this means offending the Sword Immortal Pavilion. Even if an immortal came, he couldn't save you. Su Wuchen has some nerve, actually daring to attack a reserve candidate of the 3,000 Sword Immortals. If the Sword Immortal Pavilion blames us, our Qingyun Immortal Sect won't be able to escape responsibility either. This is blowing a hole straight through the heavens. Chu Shan was so furious, his lungs were about to explode. Ungrateful disciple! How dare you commit violence right in front of me and try to kill a witness into silence? The three great elders moved at once and trapped me in the middle. I kicked Xie An away. I controlled the force perfectly. I only crippled his Dantian and didn't take his life right away. With this kind of scheming green tea, of course, it was more interesting to keep him around and play with him properly. Junior sister's heart shattered. She held the despairing Xie An in her arms and hurriedly took out a top-grade pill to feed him. Her eyes were red as she looked over, like she wanted to devour me alive. Father, he crippled my junior brother. I want him dead. The aura of the three great elders changed, as if they had instantly grown towering and huge, like three giants. Their overwhelming pressure surged through the field like furious ocean waves. Several thousand disciples all felt suffocated. The three great elders are all at the late nascent soul stage, no matter how strong Su Wuchen is. Hess, dead for sure. Junior brother is so kind. He was only careless for a moment and got crippled by him. Su Wuchen deserves 10,000 deaths, with the three great elders suppressing him together. Even if Su Wuchen dies, he should feel honored. The three great elders each summoned their lifebound treasures. One had a flying sword, one had an ancient bronze mirror, and the last had a 7-story pagoda. The three lifebound treasures suddenly grew enormous, carrying heaven-shaking momentum as they suppressed me from above. I sneered. An ant trying to shake a tree. I raised one hand to meet them, not a trace of spiritual power spilling out. Boom! The three lifebound treasures shattered instantly. A world-shaking explosion erupted, and the entire Piao Miao Peak trembled slightly. Spiritual power raged and churned through heaven and earth. The invisible shockwaves surged outward in all directions like raging tidal waves. Some weaker disciples were blown over by the blast, with their lifebound treasures destroyed. The three great elders coughed blood and were sent flying. But before they could even hit the ground, I reached into the air with my bare hand. The three great elders instantly turned into clouds of blood mist. The three great elders were actually killed by Su Wuchen with his bare hands. No way! How could senior brother be this terrifying? What cultivation is he at? How old is senior brother? Could his strength have reached the divine transformation stage? Very likely the middle divine transformation stage. A divine transformation expert in his 20s is absolutely a monstrous genius. How is that possible? Everyone felt a chill run down their spines. Their souls nearly left their bodies, one by one. Junior sister Chu Yunyao's mind went blank as she stared at me in a daze. Xie An's eyes were full of venom as he looked at me. He had originally thought I was a spineless piece of trash, and that he could easily take away my heavenly Dao spirit root and Chu Yunyao. He never expected to be completely crippled by me the moment we crossed hands. He was overcome with deep regret. The tragic deaths of the three great elders made Sect Master Chu Shan's eyes split with rage. But after calming down and thinking it over, he also felt a trace of regret. After all, the original owner had been raised by him with his own hands. So there was still some affection there. And now I had displayed strength of at least the divine transformation stage. At such an age, that made me a peerless heaven-defying genius in any sect. Wouldn't someone like that be worshipped like a god on the spot? Compared to that, this whiny Xie was complete trash. When Xie An saw the sect master's expression shifting uncertainly, he panicked. He had become a cripple, all because of me. If his life was miserable, he was definitely not going to let mine be easy either. Xie An pointed at me with a face full of grief and anger, and shouted, "Su Wuchen, you were obviously just a useless bum, waiting to die. If you didn't cultivate, and still got this strong, then you must have secretly cultivated demonic arts. Su Wuchen, even if you strayed into the demonic path, as long as you sincerely begged Master for forgiveness, Master wouldn't necessarily blame you, but you shouldn't have acted so viciously. You actually publicly killed Enforcement Hall disciples and the three great elders. The righteous and demonic paths can never coexist. Today is your death day." The other disciples all suddenly understood and glared at me with even more viciousness. So senior brother was secretly cultivating demonic arts. No wonder he got this strong while slacking off every day. Great demon, you're only in your 20s and can easily defeat 3 late nascent soul elders. If you didn't use demonic methods, how could you have done that? Su Wuchen must be a spy sent by the demonic path. He has to be killed. Xie had become a cripple, and Chu Yunyao wished she could eat my flesh and drink my blood. Su Wuchen, you deserve to die. Chu Shan made his decision immediately. He felt Xie An's words weren't without reason. No matter how much of a peerless genius someone was, it was impossible to become an absolute powerhouse just by slacking off. I had publicly killed the 3 great elders. I was already completely irreconcilable with the sect, to the death and beyond. And on top of that, Su Wuchen had crippled Xie An, a reserve candidate of the Sword Immortal Pavilion's 3,000 Sword Immortals. If the Sword Immortal Pavilion blamed him, he couldn't bear that responsibility. He had to cut the weeds and eliminate the root skill, Su Wuchen, and remove all future trouble. At the same time, he could give the Sword Immortal Pavilion an explanation. Chu Shan drew his sword and pointed it at the sky, his voice shaking the heavens. "All disciples, hear my order. Form the Qingyun sword formation and spare no effort to kill Su Wuchen." Chu Shan was a middle divine transformation expert and had no confidence at all in fighting me one-on-one. Afraid that something might change, he had no choice but to use the entire sect's power to suppress and kill me. In an instant, on top of Piao Miao Peak, several thousand flying swords buzzed as they flew out of their sheaths. The sword edges reflected the blood-red setting sun, weaving a huge net of sword chi across the sky. The air between heaven and earth filled with killing intent. Chu Shan stood in the air. The pressure of the divine transformation stage rolled like raging tides, covering all of Piao Miao Peak. The Qingyun sword formation, formed by several thousand disciples, sent sword chi surging to the heavens and transformed into a phantom giant sword hundreds of feet long. As if it could split open the sky, the winds and clouds changed. Thunder exploded. Birds and beasts within several hundred li fled in panic. The Qingyun sword formation, gathering the cultivation of several thousand disciples, carried power comparable to a tribulation transcendence expert. At this moment, heavenly thunder rumbled. An immense pressure covered all directions. The entire southern province felt this force and looked up at the sky, their faces changing dramatically. A tribulation transcendence cultivators aura. Are there tribulation transcendence cultivators fighting? The direction is Qingyun Sword Sect. What major event happened? Could it be the demon race making a comeback? We should hurry over and take a look. Exactly so. Just then, in the distant sky, a densely packed group of sword cultivators came flying on swords. Everyone was stunned, because the people who had come were none other than the 3,000 sword cultivators of the Sword Immortal Pavilion. At the front was a middle-aged man. This man was Yuan Gang, the #1 terrestrial sword immortal in the human world, and the master of the Sword Immortal Pavilion. A terrestrial sword immortal stood above the tribulation transcendence stage. In this era, when immortals no longer appeared, he was the #1 person in this world. Yuan Gang stood atop an immortal sword, his white robes whipping in the fierce wind like a lone peak in a snowy night. Behind him followed 3,000 sword cultivators, all of them cultivators above the divine transformation stage. There were fully 500 tribulation transcendence cultivators among them. If any of them died in battle, reserve candidates would fill their places. They flew in a neat formation, the silver light reflected from their sword spines weaving together into a flowing, brilliant river of stars. Just watching from afar was enough to make the cultivators on the ground feel their blood and chi surge. Their sword-gripping hands trembling uncontrollably. When the demon race invaded in force back then, if the Sword Immortal Pavilion hadn't acted, the entire human world would have long since been reduced to devastation. Every one of the people before us was the kind who would leave their names in history. The 3,000 sword cultivators flew over at high speed, and their terrifying pressure swept over all directions. My God, that's Lord Terrestrial Sword Immortal. To see the Terrestrial Sword Immortal today makes my whole life worth it. These 3,000 Sword Immortals are legendary figures. We pay our respects to Lord Terrestrial Sword Immortal. Cries of shock and cheers rose and fell throughout the entire southern province. Countless common people looked up at the sky devoutly. Ordinary civilians even dropped to their knees, one after another. The whole crowd was stirred with emotion. The scene of 3,000 sword cultivators flying through the sky deeply shocked all the people of the southern province. Many cultivators who had been preparing to fly through the sky to Yuan Immortal Sect to investigate all descended and saluted out of respect. The direction the Sword Immortal Pavilion is heading. It's actually Yuan Immortal Sect. Could something really have happened to Yuan Immortal Sect? I heard some time ago that Yuan Immortal Sect had 2 good seedlings chosen by the Sword Immortal Pavilion as reserve candidates for the 3,000 Sword Immortals. Could they be here to pick them up? Other cultivators followed behind the people of the Sword Immortal Pavilion and all rushed toward Yuan Immortal Sect. Kill! At Chu Shan's command, the sword formation roared into motion. Several thousand disciples linked their spiritual power together. Sword light criss-crossed, forming a fierce killing net in the void. Wherever the sword chi passed, the ground of Piao Peak cracked inch by inch. Towering ancient trees were shredded into splinters, and countless wood chips mixed with flying sand and broken stones. I stood at the center of the sword formation, my white robes whipping in the wind. I threw my head back and laughed. Ha ha, a bunch of idiots. A 1,000-year sect got toyed with by a scheming green tea and spun around in circles. If you want to kill me, then let the whole sect die with it. He stared at the sky-covering sword formation, cold light flickering in his eyes. Faced with such a shocking scene, I still stood unmoving like a mountain, and instead, a cold smile rose at the corner of my lips. Junior sister Chu Yunyao hadn't joined the sword formation, holding the crippled junior brother. She laughed madly. The Yuan sword formation is our Yuan Immortal Sect's greatest reliance. So, what if your talent is good? You hurt junior brother, so I want you buried with him. Chu Shan leaped up and stood in the void, holding the phantom giant sword, hundreds of feet long. Ungrateful disciple, die for me! The giant sword crashed down, splitting the void and slashing out a sword aura hundreds of feet long. The power of ants. Yet you dare oppose an immortal. I gazed at that 100-foot sword aura and lightly raised my hand. The collision between my hand and the sword aura released a heaven-shaking explosion. The terrifying 100-foot sword aura shattered instantly. The net of sword chi also dispersed into nothingness. In the first instant, everyone in the crowd looked at me in utter terror. Chu Shan's eyes were filled with horror. Chu Yunyao and Xie An both had their mouths hanging open, unable to believe what they were seeing. I shattered a 100-foot sword aura with a lift of my hand. What kind of terrifying strength was that? Chu Shan quickly came back to his senses. At this point, there was no room for him to think further. Either he died or I lived. Chu Shan quickly adjusted his mindset and shouted, again! The 100-foot giant sword condensed once more. Heaven and earth trembled violently beneath the 100-foot sword aura as it slashed down with unstoppable force. Are you done yet? I finally lost interest in continuing to play with them. The moment I raised my hand, space twisted and shattered like a mirror. The 100-foot sword aura collapsed, and countless shards of sword aura shot into the sky like meteors. Everyone present was so horrified. Their souls nearly flew out. Sword, come! With my light shout, the Yuan sword formation instantly collapsed. Several thousand long swords turned around in an instant, and every person present was locked onto by the blades. They all froze stupidly in place, faces full of panic. A fear rising from the depths of the soul surged upward. The shadow of death flooded their hearts. Go! With my command issue, several thousand flying swords rang with crisp sword cries, sliced through the void, and arrived like lightning in an instant. No. The whole of Piao Peak turned into a living hell. Miserable screams shook the sky. Severed limbs flew everywhere, and blood flowed like a river. In only a few moments, aside from Chu Yunyao, and Xie. Everyone else, including Chu Shan, had their dantians pierced and all 4 limbs severed. The sight atop Piao Miao Peak was too horrible to look at, and wails filled the air. I stood in the middle of it all, dressed in white, not stained by even a speck of dust, like an exiled immortal descending to the mortal world. Chu Yunyao threw herself to Chu Shan's side and cried out shrilly, "Father!" Chu Shan's whole body trembled from the intense pain. The way he looked at me was full of hatred, but even more of terror. Chu Yunyao turned to me, hatred surging to the heavens. "Su Wuchen, you devil! You could even do this to Father Hez, your master. You beast! You won't die a good death!" I let out a light laugh. Chu Yunyao, they wanted to kill me. I only cut off their limbs and crippled their cultivation. What? And you can't take even that? Several thousand disciples of the sect kept rolling around and wailing. Each and every one of them stared at me, wishing they could tear me into pieces. Just then, the 3,000 sword cultivators arrived in vast force, covering the sky and the sun. Their terrifying pressure made heaven and earth tremble. Yuan Gang flew at the front on his sword. He seemed one with heaven and earth. Looking at him from afar, he was like an exiled immortal, gazing down upon all living beings. This was my first time seeing my disciple Yuan Gang. In reality, I had roamed the world in my dreams. 10 years ago, the Sword Immortal Pavilion had still been a little-known organization. It had only a bit more than 300 members. Yet they took slaying demons and defending the common people as their mission. I didn't have much goodwill toward this sort of organization, but I didn't dislike it either. Back then, while traveling near Qingzhou of the demon race, I just happened to run into Yuan Gang leading the Sword Immortal Pavilion in pursuit of a 9-tailed fox demon. Unexpectedly, they chased it all the way to the fox demon's nest. The fox demon army came pouring out in full force, and the Sword Immortal Pavilion collapsed on the spot, suffering massive casualties in moments. Yuan Gang's eyes nearly split with rage. To cover the Sword Immortal Pavilion disciples' retreat, he burned his own blood essence and fought bathed in blood, refusing to retreat even in death. At the time, he was only at the late divine transformation stage, facing the fox demon army. He was no more than a mantis, trying to stop a chariot. Just as Yuan Gang was about to be torn to pieces by the fox demon army, I ultimately couldn't bear to watch. With one sword strike, I killed 3,000 fox demons, forced back a fox demon army of tens of thousands, and saved the dying Yuan Gang. When Yuan Gang saw that my sword strike was something not of this mortal world, he kowtowed and begged to become my disciple. I gave him a huge pile of immortal medicine and an immortal-grade cultivation technique. Yuan Gang was rather rigid. Every time he saw me, he insisted on kowtowing and performing the disciple-taking ceremony. When I traveled in my dreams, I also often went to see him. Soon enough, relying on that immortal-grade cultivation technique, he cultivated to the realm of terrestrial immortal, but his talent was average, and his foundation was unstable. In this life, this was as far as he would go. Later, when he learned I was a disciple of Qingyun Immortal Sect, he wasn't surprised. He just assumed I was living here in seclusion and playing through the mortal world. Yuan Gang suggested many times that he come visit me, but I refused him every time. If he came over, how was I supposed to slack off? This time was the 99th time he had brought it up. In the end, I couldn't bear it and didn't refuse again. When Chu Yunyao saw Sword Immortal Yuan Gang arrive with the 3,000 Sword Immortals, it was as if she had found a savior. She hurriedly knelt on the ground, pointed at me angrily, and loudly accused me. "My Lord Sword Immortal, please uphold justice. This disciple is Chu Yunyao, a reserve candidate of the Sword Immortal Pavilions, 3,000 Sword Immortals. Su Wuchen is the senior brother of my sect. He secretly cultivated demonic arts and slaughtered sect disciples for no reason. I ask Lord Sword Immortal to uphold justice for this disciple." Every member of Qingyun Immortal Sect had been ashen-faced and desperate. Now that they saw the Sword Immortal personally arrive, blazing hope ignited in them again. The terrestrial Sword Immortal was publicly acknowledged by the world as the #1 expert, with him stepping in. No matter how strong Su Wuchen was, he would definitely die. Behind the 3,000 sword cultivators came a dense mass of wandering cultivators, looking at the tragic state of Qingyun Immortal Sect before them. Every one of them changed expression. Just who is this Su Wuchen? He actually dares massacre his own sect and do something this deranged. He looks only in his 20s. To wipe out an entire sect by himself makes him a peerless monster. Su Wuchen used to be Qingyun Immortal Sect's chief disciple. He established his foundation at 5, but for some reason started slacking off and stagnated at foundation establishment for 18 years without making any progress. And now he wiped out a sect by himself. At the very least, Hez, a top tribulation transcendence powerhouse. Could it really be that he secretly cultivated demonic arts? This Su Wuchen is so arrogant. Lord Yuan Sword Immortal is here in person, and he still won't kneel. He really has a death wish. The Sword Immortal Pavilion's mission is to slay demons and exterminate evil. Su Wuchen is definitely going to die today. Yuan Gang slowly landed on the ground, stared at Chu Yunyao, and coldly spoke with a dark expression. You say Su Wuchen secretly cultivated demonic arts, feeling Lord Terrestrial Sword Immortal's displeasure. Chu Yunyao had no idea what she had said wrong and was terrified. She hurriedly knelt down and rushed to speak first. Lord Sword Immortal. Every word Senior Sister Chu said is true. 3 years ago, I personally saw Su Wuchen rape and murder Senior Sister. We only came to question him, but he flew into a demonic frenzy, severed the limbs of thousands of sect members, and crippled their cultivation with methods like these. He must be a demonic cultivator, he cried as he shouted loudly. I beg Lord Sword Immortal to uphold justice for us. All the disciples of Qingyun Immortal Sect prostrated themselves on the ground and cried out miserably. We beg Lord Sword Immortal to uphold justice for us. Their voices were filled with sorrow and shook the clouds. Anyone who heard it would feel how tragic and desolate it was. The people of Qingyun Immortal Sect turned to look at me again, and their eyes were full of smugness. Now that public outrage was boiling over, Lord Sword Immortal would definitely uphold justice for them and kill me. He would give them justice. But unexpectedly, Yuan Gang's voice remained as cold as ever. You keep saying Su Wuchen raped and murdered your senior sister and is a demonic cultivator. Do you have any evidence? The disciples of Qingyun Immortal Sect all looked at one another. What was going on with Lord Sword Immortal? They were already this miserable. Why did he still need evidence? Qingyun Immortal Sect's Sect Master Chu Shan hurriedly crawled to Lord Sword Immortal's feet, tears streaming down his old face. Lord Sword Immortal, I am the Sect Master of Qingyun Immortal Sect. Su Wuchen was raised by me with my own hands. He established his foundation at 5. So it can be said he was a peerless genius, but later he completely gave up cultivating and just slacked off. If he wasn't secretly cultivating demonic arts, how could he possibly have such strength? He has rebelled against his master and destroyed his ancestors. He has already fallen into the demonic path, and 3 years ago, he raped and murdered a female disciple. Xie An witnessed it with his own eyes, and Xie An is also a reserve candidate of your Sword Immortal Pavilion's 3,000 Sword Immortals. So, he would absolutely never lie. The other disciples of the sect all echoed him. Exactly. Junior brother is so kind. How could he lie? Su Wuchen betrayed his master and ancestors, and his methods are cruel. How could he not be a demonic cultivator? Chu Yunyao said sternly. Lord Sword Immortal, if Su Wuchen weren't a demonic cultivator, then he should have let us cripple his cultivation, extract his spirit root, and let him die to prove his innocence. Who would have thought that not only would he resist, he even crippled the entire sect? If Hess not a demonic cultivator, then what is he? Hearing this, Yuan Gang flew into a towering rage, and shocking, killing intent exploded from his body. Everyone present immediately felt an overwhelming pressure. A mountain-like force made everyone's hearts pound in fear. Even their souls trembled uncontrollably. Chu Yunyao was overjoyed. She thought my actions had finally enraged Lord Sword Immortal. She turned to me and shouted sharply, "How bold! Su Wuchen, Lord Sword Immortal is before you, and you still won't kneel and beg for mercy, so he can at least grant you an intact corpse." Shut your mouth! Chu Yunyao was sent flying by a slap from Yuan Gang. Blood sprayed from her mouth in midair. With a bang, she smashed onto the ground and couldn't get up for a long time. She was completely dazed, her whole head buzzing. She had no idea why Lord Sword Immortal had hit her. The sudden turn stunned everyone present into blank-faced silence, all rooted where they stood. The watching cultivators were also utterly confused. The pressure radiating from Sword Immortal Yuan grew heavier and heavier, so heavy that everyone could hardly breathe. Good, very good. What a Qingyun Immortal Sect. Without any evidence at all. You dared slander Su Wuchen, and you even wanted to cripple his cultivation, extract his spirit root, and make him die to atone. You've got some nerve. Everyone from Qingyun Immortal Sect lay prone on the ground, trembling, not even daring to breathe loudly. None of them understood what was going on. Yuan Gang smiled and quickly walked over to me, then dropped to his knees and kowtowed. Your disciple, Yuan Gang, greets Master. The 3,000 sword cultivators knelt in perfect unison, their voices shaking the clouds. We greet Grand Master. At that moment, heaven and earth went silent. Everyone stared in disbelief at the young man who had been standing there lazily the whole time. Who could have imagined that this seemingly ordinary young man was actually the master of the terrestrial sword, Immortal? How could it be possible? The people of Qingyun Immortal Sect looked as if they had been struck by lightning. Their faces were pale, their eyes filled with utter disbelief. Chu Yunyao stared blankly at me, her mind completely empty. Teth, how is this possible? She and collapsed limply to the ground, trembling all over. How could Lord Sword Immortal be Su Wuchen's disciple? This is impossible. Sect Master Chu Shan looked even deader than ashes, his old face twisted. Lord Sword Immortal, could you have mistaken him? Su Wuchen, he. Insolence! Yuan Gang shouted angrily, his voice shaking the 9 heavens. You ants dare question me! The 3,000 sword cultivators drew their swords at the same time. Sword light shot into the sky and tore the clouds to pieces. The horrifying pressure of sword chi forced everyone present to kneel to the ground, unable even to raise their heads. The watching cultivators were even more horrified, stunned stiff like wooden chickens. My God, Lord Sword Immortal actually is Su Wuchen's disciple. This is too unbelievable. How can this be possible? Not dreaming. Am I? No one dared believe what they were seeing. It all felt so dreamlike. It's over. It's over. Qingyun Immortal Sect is really finished this time. Chu Yunyao struggled to her feet. Half her face was swollen high, and blood still hung at the corner of her mouth. She screamed hysterically, impossible. Lord Sword Immortal, you must have been deceived by this demon. How could he possibly be your master? Silence! Cold light burst from Yuan Gang's eyes. He pointed one finger and directly pierced Chu Yunyao's dantian. Chu Yunyao spat out a mouthful of blood with a puff, and all her cultivation dispersed into heaven and earth. If you dare slander my master by even half a sentence again, make your soul scatter! Sect Master Chu Shan collapsed directly onto the ground. No matter how hard he thought, he couldn't understand how I had become Lord Sword Immortal's master. Yuan Gang stood up and coldly swept his gaze across the people of Qingyun Immortal Sect. My cultivation technique was taught by Master. If he is a demonic cultivator, then am I a demonic cultivator too? You offended Master, your crimes deserve 10,000 deaths. Sword Immortal Pavilion. Here, my order. I knew Yuan Gang wanted to directly order these people executed, so I waved a hand and interrupted him. I swept my gaze across the crowd and spoke lightly. Since Xie An says he personally saw me rape and murder Senior Sister, then I'll let you all die with full understanding. I grabbed through the air, and Xie An was instantly sucked over. Xie An was terrified to the extreme. He struggled violently, but it was useless. I directly extracted his memories and displayed them in the void. The scene clearly showed Xie An drugging Senior Sister and crazily violating her. And not just Senior Sister, there were also 3 other missing female disciples. They too had been crazily violated by Xie An, drained through dual cultivation, and turned into 3 dried corpses. This was clearly an evil demonic dual cultivation harvesting technique. Vile, to the extreme. No wonder Junior Brother had reached the nascent soul stage in only 3 short years after joining the sect. I laughed out loud, and Qingyun Immortal Sect dares call itself a first-rate sect. It got toyed with by a demonic cultivator and spun in circles. Ha ha! Xu Yunyao was dumbfounded. She had even been thinking of breaking off our engagement and marrying Junior Brother. She couldn't take it anymore and started screaming. How could this happen? This isn't real. This absolutely isn't real. Everyone present saw that scene. The watching cultivators all revealed expressions of utter disbelief. This Xie An wasn't just a demonic cultivator, he was a dead pervert too. The entire Qingyun Immortal Sect went mad, their eyes turning red. They had actually been played like fools by Junior Brother. Now their limbs were severed and their cultivation was gone, all because of Junior Brother. Xie An suddenly spat out a large mouthful of blood. It's all my fault. I was blind and foolish. 1,000-year sect has been destroyed in a single day. I am a sinner for all ages. Xie An fell straight backward, already dead from rage. A bunch of idiots. I threw Xie An like a dead dog into the middle of the several thousand Qingyun disciples. This is your beloved Junior Brother. The reason you ended up like this today is all thanks to him. Hez, my gift to you. It was as if the several thousand disciples had found an outlet for their hatred. They crazily crawled toward Xie An. Xie An was so scared his liver and gall nearly split. What are you doing? Don't come over. But very quickly, he was swallowed up by the several thousand disciples. They ate his flesh and gnawed his bones, and very soon they tore Xie An into pieces. When Xu Yunyao saw Xie An's miserable end, she screamed again and again in terror. Her regret had turned her insides green. Like a madwoman, she crawled to my feet. Senior Brother, I was wrong. Xie An tricked me. Please forgive me. Okay, I really know I was wrong. The sect is destroyed, and Father is dead too. I won't break off the engagement anymore. I only have you left, Senior Brother. She had almost become the wife of a terrestrial sword Immortals master. What had she done? I immediately pulled out the Human Emperor banner and laughed loudly. Since you know you were wrong, then come into my Human Emperor banner and repent for all eternity. No, Senior Brother, I won't break off the engagement anymore. I was wrong. I really was wrong. With one wave of my Human Emperor banner, Xu Yunyao and the several thousand disciples all turned into clouds of blood mist. Their souls screamed and wailed as they were all sucked into the Human Emperor banner. Ding! Congratulations, host, for completing the hidden mission of destroying the sect. Host, Cultivation +1. Advanced to the Immortal King Realm. Reward, 1 Space-Time Gate. Note: the space-time gate can freely carry out interstellar travel and ignore the laws of time and space. Who would have thought there'd be a hidden reward, too? I'm already sick of staying here anyway. Might as well go back to Blue Star and keep slacking off.